Oh, you picked a good time to watch Carving It Up tonight. For the first 30 minutes of the show, we're going to talk all Micah Parsons, traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers in a NFL blockbuster, which sends the all-star pass rusher to Green Bay. What the heck were the Cowboys thinking? How did Jerry mismanage this from the jump, as he always does? He's the worst GM in the NFL. I'll explain why in just a few minutes. How Micah will impact Green Bay and turn them into a Super Bowl contender. What this says about Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. After that is over, the Vol View is back, baby. One of my favorite segments to do throughout the football season. I'll predict Tennessee's 2025 schedule as college football begins officially tomorrow. Speaking of college football, my playoff predictions, the 12 teams that get in the postseason, who wins the national championship, and at the end of the show, get predictions for what is an amazing Week 1 of college football ahead, including, of course, the marquee, Texas and Ohio State. Carving Up starts right now. Before we drop the beat, it's important to bring this in, all right? Cheesehead Ozzy is back in the building. So drop the beat, baby. Here we go.
Go back, go.
Muted there for a second. I think we're back. Oh, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, Instagram, X, and on Facebook. I'm Bryson Carver. It's great to be with you on this delightful Friday. And this is not a way to troll Cowboys fans, as some may think this to be. Yeah, I'm a Dak Prescott fan. You see his bobblehead over my shoulder. A former Cowboys fan. So I hurt with Cowboys fans out there. I understand the pain. I get it. But I figured was there ever an opportunity to bring Cheesehead Ozzy back in the fold? And here we go. For those that, been living under a rock for the last 24 hours, Micah Parsons, the Packer. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Crazy stuff going around the National Football League on that front. So we'll talk about that. A lot of college football stuff. So the Vol View is back. Very excited to talk Tennessee football. They open the season tomorrow against Syracuse in Atlanta. Talk about that game. Talk about Tennessee season. I'll predict it as I do every season going into the year. Also, college football playoff predictions, my top 12 teams, who gets in and who wins the Natty in 2025. And at the end of the show, my predictions for the marquee games, the big ranked matchups in college football, obviously headlined entirely by Texas, Ohio State tomorrow at 12. I feel like it's weird. I haven't worn this in a while. I feel like I shouldn't be taken seriously over the next hour and a half, but trust me, just stick around. We're going to have some fun tonight. So let's get to it. But first, as I try to keep this cheese on my head, Micah Parsons, after a nearly month-long trade request to the Dallas Cowboys and to owner and general manager Jerry Jones, has been traded to the Green Bay Packers. Something I never thought I'd be saying out, well, at least up until this week when I said actually Green Bay could land Micah. We can show you the trade details right here. So there you go. Packers get Micah Parsons. The Cowboys get Kenny Clark, defensive tackle, who is a 3-time Pro Bowler, although he is coming off of the worst season of his career. They also get a 2026 first rounder and a 2027 first rounder as well. You talk about the fact that Micah, obviously, of course, he was going to want a contract with the Packers, which he got. 4 years, $188 million. 136 of that is guaranteed. $47 million a year. That is the most of any non-quarterback in NFL history. Did Micah Parsons land? I'll go and put the cheesehead to the side for now. Maybe bring out a little later as my hair's all messed up. But let's talk about this. So from the Cowboys side, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones did a press conference yesterday. I'm going to play a couple bites from that, but this was what Jerry was talking about. The reasoning, one of the reasonings at least, as to why he did trade Micah Parsons to Green Bay yesterday. Take a listen to Jerry.
The facts are, and we'll cover it, I'm sure, with many of your questions, but the facts are specifically we need to stop the run. And we haven't been able to stop the run at key times for several years. And when you have the kind of extraordinary pass rush that Michael had, then the way to mitigate that pass rush is to run at you. If the pass rush doesn't get you ahead pretty big time and you're playing even or behind, then you've really got a problem in stopping the run.
He is technically correct from the standpoint of, yeah, Micah Parsons is not good against the run. That's been my knock, and a lot of folks' knocks on him. If you want to just look at a prime example, look at one of the best running teams in football, the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, who gave defenses all types of problems. Go look at the film of that game. Micah was in a blender for the entire afternoon in Dallas. With that being said, we are talking about a guy who is undeniably one of the 5 best passers in football, at least if you look at the numbers, certainly according to Pro Football Focus. Since entering the league, he is 5th in sacks, tied for 5th in tackles for losses, and according to PFF, 2nd in pass rush grade, 2nd in pass rush win rate, and number 1 in the National Football League since entering it in 2021 in terms of pressure rate. Essentially, Micah gets the quarterback at a higher rate than any player in the National Football League. I have knocked him for not doing so against the more elite tackles, the Trent Williams of the world, the Lane Johnsons of the world in Philadelphia. With that being said, he is 26 years old. You have to imagine he's getting better. Jerry, at one point, after he called Micah Michael multiple times, at one point in the press conference, he was talking about, hey, Micah is a guy who you have to look at the contract in terms of what he's going to provide, not just what he has provided. Okay, you have to imagine a guy like that's going to get better. A guy who's, I think, 3 years younger than Myles Garrett, 4 years younger than TJ Watt, my guy from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Speaking of that, the TJ Watt and Myles Garrett component of this, I think it is fair to mention Jerry has clearly shown himself, and this is kind of like the final nail in the coffin, as the worst general manager in the National Football League. I've talked for years on this show, particularly last offseason with my man Dak Prescott, and to a degree, CeeDee Lamb, who's one of the top receivers in football, about how he lets these contracts wear out. He lets other guys at these players' position get paid. Just to put that into context, this isn't carving out the context, but to put it into context, going into the 2024 offseason, the highest paid receiver in the National Football League was Tyreek Hill at $30 million per. Amon-Ra St. Brown got paid 30. Brandon Ayuk got 30. Jalen Waddle got 28, but that's still, again, adding to the market. A.J. Brown got 32. All of them happened before CeeDee Lamb finally got 34. Also, Justin Jefferson ended up getting 35 to set the market. CeeDee got just a tick below that. Justin Jefferson's the best receiver in football. At quarterback, highest paid quarterback in the National Football League going into the 2024 offseason was Joe Burrow. But in that span, you know who else got paid 55 large? Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Tua got 53 mil. Jared Goff got 53 mil. These guys got the bag until at the last minute, the 11th hour, hours before the Cowboys' first game against the Cleveland Browns, Dak Prescott gets a contract that pays him $60 million a year, the largest contract in NFL history. Going into this past offseason, when you look at highest paid edge rusher, Nick Bosa was the top of the market. $34 million per season. Since then, Max Crosby, 35. Danielle Hunter, 35. Myles Garrett, 40. TJ Watt, 41. All of those guys got the bag before Micah, thus extending the market higher than the Cowboys could have potentially gotten Micah at from the beginning. And that's what I want to hammer on. Because Jerry was doing some crazy gaslighting in this next clip we're about to show, which contradicts himself from literally a few weeks ago. We'll show that right now. Jerry Jones, first of all, he compared this trade to the Herschel Walker move. That's absurd. But Jerry in this clip talks about, hey, we've been working on this for some time, trying to trade Micah. Take a listen to Jerry.
This trade was not just thought about today. This trade has been going on in our minds and our strategies and being talked about. It's been going on all spring. It culminated today, and it came quick, but that's the way things go. It does happen fast when it happens.
Okay, we've been working on this since the spring. This is just a soundbite part that we're going to play. See what somebody else who works with the Dallas Cowboys had to say just a few weeks ago, about Micah Parsons' status in the organization and whether they were trying to get the deal done. Take a listen.
As always, in any relationships, there are different moods at different times of your relationship. That's what it is. Don't lose any sleep over it.
So just to be
That's
clear,
one thing I would say to our fans. Don't lose any sleep over it.
Don't lose any sleep over it. It was, we're working on it. No worries. And Dak Prescott. And shout out to my man Dak. But Dak's like, yeah, it's going to get done. A couple of days ago, they asked Dak Prescott, do you think this is going to get done? Do you think he's going to be there for week 1? He's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Total confidence. Now, either Dak is the greatest liar in the world, which Dak's a good guy. I don't think that to be the case. Or he was under the assumption, as multiple Cowboys, if you look at their social media, Trayvon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, and others were just devastated by this. They thought, okay, Jerry's being Jerry. Here we go again. And he's going to get paid probably the day before our game against Philly next week. Oh, we actually traded him. Oh, snap. Okay. And here's something that's interesting. Because folks have compared this move a lot. Cross sport, but same city, same year, by the way. The Dallas sports fans have just had it rough for the last hour. My man Tyler Reddington at the Grid Network, who's a Cowboys and a Mavs fan, it's just gone through hell this year. I guess he got Paige Beckers and Cooper Flagg, so it wasn't all bad. But back in February, obviously, remember the most shocking trade in NBA history, at least by the way I saw it. Luka Doncic getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, and then 6 months later, Micah Parsons trades to the Green Bay Packers. Folks have debated what's worse. Luka, to me, is clearly worse from the standpoint, Micah did not want to leave. Luka was devastated on leaving. You saw Micah Parsons at his house on social media. He's jumping up and down. He's high-fiving. He gets to retire his mother. That was a really touching moment that you saw at Micah's crib. But Luka was crushed to leave Dallas. Micah was not. And by the way, the compensation that the Mavs got was a joke for Luka. It was not for the Cowboys. Kenny Clark is coming off his worst season. Kenny Clark's a good interior defensive lineman. 2 first-round picks. You mean to tell me the Dallas Cowboys have 4 first-round picks over the next 2 years? Man, they're going to rebuild this thing. Oh, that's right. They had the worst general manager in the National Football League in Jerry Jones, and the last 3 drafts would evidence that, not including 2025 because we haven't seen how those players play out. Let's look at the last few drafts, 2022 to 2024. I'm not going to read all the names on here, but here's 2022. Not a terrible draft. Actually, not a bad draft. Tyler Smith's panned out. Jalen Tolbert isn't very good. Jake Ferguson's a good tight end. The Cowboys paid him. Deron Bland, remember he broke the pick 6 record a couple of years ago. Not a terrible draft in 2022 by any stretch. There was some Sam Williams hasn't panned out. There's some other guys who haven't been what Cowboys fans had hoped. 2023 is about as bad of a draft as you'll see. Mozzie Smith got cut the other day. Luke Schoonmaker's done nothing. Overshown can't stay healthy. God bless him. Deuce Vaughn, who's the shortest player in football, I think, he got cut. Like Jalen Brooks hasn't panned out. Disastrous 2023 class. 2024, this past year, might be as bad, if not worse. I mean, look at this. None of these guys have panned out in these slides. Now, again, these are young players. But based on the recent track record, it's got a little bit... I know folks have compared Jerry Jones to the older Al Davis, where it's like, at one point they were visionaries. At one point they were controversial characters, but great for the business of the league, but kind of devolved into, okay, like they're getting up there in age, the draft decisions. I mean, remember the Raiders took like Darius Hayward-Bay in the first round. He was like a 7th round talent. Like weird moves the Raiders made before Al Davis passed away in 2011. Like I know folks can compare it to that. I think there's a little bit of a Bill Belichick syndrome here. Like Bill Belichick, we have a longer track record, but his last 10 drafts in New England were absolutely dreadful. And it's part of the reason he was driven out of New England, rightfully so, finally, by the Kraft family. That's what you're seeing with Jerry. The difference is Jerry can't fire himself. Well, he can fire himself as the GM, but we think he's going to do that. So it's contradictory behavior. Hey, we've been working on this for months. Well, I thought you said months ago that you had, quote unquote, a handshake agreement with Micah. Of course, you didn't try and do business with his agent because you're trying to do something shady with Micah Parsons, which, by the way, directly violates the CBA. That's not getting discussed enough. So is Micah Parsons a perfect player? No. Have I criticized him on this show? Yes. No question about it. Is he on the level in my mind today of a TJ Watt, a Myles Garrett, a Nick Bosa? I do not believe that. But is he, without question, along with Pat Surtain, the best defensive player, young defensive player in football? No, it's not even a debate. No question about it. And Jerry Jones, if this was his intent to move Micah Parsons, why not do it earlier? So A, the draft picks you get in return can help you this year, and you're not just punting on 2025. I mean, Jerry said in the presser that, hey, we're going to use this as an opportunity. We might use these picks to get us a player who can help us win now this year. No, you're not. That's not going to happen. I've suggested Tyreek Hill will get dealt. That's not going to happen. By the way, has Jerry Jones been known to be a guy who's really aggressive in the trade market? Has Jerry Jones been a guy who's known to be aggressive in free agency? He notoriously, Derrick Henry wanted to be a Cowboy. Dallas wouldn't pay the money. So a lot of this does boil down to, and I think there's an element of when Dak Prescott, I think Dak Prescott might have actually been the nail in the coffin to a certain degree indirectly. When Dak Prescott and his agent Todd France got that deal done last year, after all the back and forth, and Jerry kind of take passive-aggressive shots at Dak and vice versa, and it's like, man, Dak's going to leave. And then they get the deal done. Dak becomes the highest-paid player in NFL history in terms of AAV. I bet you when the next day and the ensuing weeks, especially after Dak kind of struggled last year, it's like, boy, Dak took Jerry to the cleaners. By the way, again, just like he did in 2021. I could see Jerry Jones with a player of the temperament of Micah Parsons who doesn't take any BS from anybody, and who Lil Wayne on national television, who knows Micah Parsons, actually revealed on TV on First Things First that, Micah told me him and Jerry weren't that tight. With us now knowing that, I could see Jerry looking at that and saying, that ain't happening again. I'm the deal maker. I'm a maverick. Right? I'm in the midst still of watching this Jerry Jones documentary on Netflix. It's really well produced. But you see that. It's like, man, this guy was a deal maker. This guy was, and he still wants to get to that. He still wants to convince himself that he is still that guy. He obviously is not. He's trying to convince himself that he is. Hey, this could be the Herschel Walker 2.0. No, it isn't. It could be if the Cowboys had a well-run front office, but unfortunately, as we see by recent drafts, flunks in free agency, how they've handled star players' contracts, they're not. I could use this as an opportunity to beg Dak Prescott to leave Dallas, to request a trade after the season is over. Hopefully that happens. Dak, Pittsburgh would love you. But more than anything, this is a big, fat middle finger to the Dallas Cowboys fan base. We're not just going to trade Micah. We are going to make this as ugly as we can possibly make it, do shady business with the guy, divide the locker room, then move him. Before the season, by the way, as opposed to doing it before the draft, when the draft said draft picks could have helped you this year, as Jerry Jones seems to be implying and even saying multiple times the presser, we're trying to win this year. We believe that we can what? You're a 9-8 team at best. Your offense will be productive. Dak Prescott, I've said multiple times, when he's healthy, he's a top 10 quarterback in the league. Easy. CeeDee Lamb's an amazing receiver. George Pickens, a head case to say the very least. I say that as a Steelers fan, but he'll be a good number 2. He'll put up a lot of points. You will be a poor man's version of the Cincinnati Bengals. Dak isn't Burrow. CD isn't quite Jamar Chase. Both defenses are dreadful. At least the Bengals will at least have Trey Hendrickson. It's a mess, and this is the nail in the coffin in the Jerry is the worst GM in football, and the cruel twist of fate for Dallas is they can't get rid of Jerry. There's not an owner to fire Jerry because Jerry is the owner, as we all know. Now let's talk about the Packers, because that to me is just as fascinating. Because we've followed up the Micah Cowboys thing has been playing itself out over the last month. For Green Bay. So first of all, I feel really vindicated on Wednesday's show. For those who didn't check it out, and we can go and put up the graphic here from Wednesday's show, the Carving It Up 2025 NFL Kickoff Show. Feel free to check it out. It's still on the YouTube channel. It's available to listen anywhere you get your podcast. Predicting the entire season, all the divisions. I feel pretty vindicated in picking the Packers to go 12-5 and win the NFC North and be the 2 seed in the NFC. So what isn't getting discussed enough? I said it kind of in passing, but almost dismissively in a way on the show the other night. Hey, Green Bay's actually got a pretty good defense. Well, yeah, you look at the numbers without Micah Parsons. Packers gave up the 6th fewest points and the 5th fewest yards a season ago. Defense was actually really good. Jordan Love struggled in that playoff game against Philadelphia, and they struggled at times to run the ball with Josh Jacobs. But add Micah Parsons to this squad, you've got a legitimate Super Bowl contender on your hands. I thought they already were to begin with. Now this solidifies it. Now they are, to me, They have earned the right to be the co-favorites with the Philadelphia Eagles to come out of the NFC. I maintain my pick. I'm still taking Philly to come out of the NFC, but Green Bay can absolutely do the same now. They undeniably got better as a football team. And to me, the bigger story is not just Micah Parsons. It's not necessarily Micah Parsons. We know Micah's great. We know Micah's going to produce double-digit sacks. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. He's going to be great. He's going to get after Jared Goff in week 1. That's Jared's is good with the clean pocket. If Micah's coming after him, not so great. To me, the story is Jordan Love. To me, and this is partly why I picked the Packers to win 12 games and be an excellent football team this year, is not just the fact that their defense is really good, not just the fact that I loved their draft pick of Matthew Golden out of Texas. I think he's going to be a true number 1 right off the bat for the Packers. It's not just the fact that LaFleur is a great coach and the offensive line is always good in Green Bay. Not just those factors. But I didn't think Jordan Love was healthy at all last season. He was torching Philadelphia, who turns out ended up being arguably the best defense in football a season ago. Injures his knee at the end of that game, comes back a little too early against Minnesota, then gets hurt again in a game against Jacksonville. Like, he was never fully right after week 1. Yeah, he's got the injury to his hand, but again, that's his non-throwing hand, so I would not worry too much about that. I don't think Packers fans need to be concerned about that whatsoever. The Packers are saying, we got the weapons. We got guys like, again, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed. Got good tight ends. Josh Jacobs running the football. Romeo Doubs. Offensive line. Defense was already good. And guess what we did? Added Micah freaking Parsons to the defensive line. We believe Jordan Love can take us to the promised land. We are betting that we are going to get second half of 2023 Jordan Love, a guy who was by every metric a top 3 quarterback in football over the second half of the season. Led Green Bay to the playoffs, obviously went to Dallas. Boy, the Packers not just own the Cowboys. Really go back to the Dez caught it game, which Dez did catch it, obviously. But from that game on to now, Green Bay has just had Dallas's number. I think they've won like 10 of their last 11 games, 11 of their last 12 against the Cowboys. Go to Dallas, mop the Cowboys, and if not for the interception at the end that Jordan Love did throw, could have easily upset the number 1 seed Niners in San Francisco to get to the NFC title game. That division's brutal. That's why I do have them going 12-5, not 13-4, 14-3, because the division's brutal. Minnesota is in last place to me, and Minnesota is far and away the best last place team in football I believe them to be. Defense is awesome. Now you're going to have a consistent pass rush, which the Packers, was that not the weakness of their roster? Like, secondary's great, Xavier McKinney, turnover machine, the whole thing, but can't generate enough pressure on the quarterback. And that's going to matter in a division with 2 young quarterbacks in J.J. McCarthy and Caleb Williams, and against Jared Goff, who notoriously struggles against pressure. He's an immobile guy. So I think they're in really good shape. By the way, Green Bay, sneaky important, has a 3rd-place schedule this season. I think when you look at the Packers right now, you're looking at a squad that is, to me, with respect to Detroit, and folks know, I didn't pick the Lions to win the division. I did pick them to go to the NFC title game for the second time, or I guess the 3rd year in a row. That is clearly the best team in the NFC North, top to bottom, overall roster construction, coaching the whole bit, home field advantage, playing at Lambeau is massive for that football team. And now you have a guy, can we just put up the Micah stats one more time? This is what he's been. Dude, do we have it? Here it is. This is what he's been since coming in the league. Easily one of the 5 best pass rushers in football, and easily, along, in my opinion, Pat Surtain, I would put slightly above Micah. I think Surtain's the best corner in football. Micah is, at worst, the 2nd best young defensive player in the National Football League. And it just to go back to, and I see I've got some comments here, and I'll answer those in just a second. It's truly remarkable to me. Tyreek Hill was the highest paid receiver going into last offseason at $30 million a year. Multiple other guys, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson. Then CeeDee Lamb got paid. Joe Burrow was the highest paid at $55 million a year going into the 2024 offseason. Then Trevor got paid. And then Jared Goff got paid. Right? And then Tua got paid. All of these guys. Then Dak got his deal. This offseason, again, the high mark for pass rushers. This is remarkable when you see the contract Micah just signed yesterday. The high mark for pass rushers was Nick Bosa at $34 million. And then Max Crosby got paid. And then Danielle Hunter got paid. And then Myles Garrett got paid. And then TJ Watt got paid. So now the number's all the way up in the 40s. Now Micah gets 47. Remarkably bad GMing by Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys and Green Bay. Listen, it's a haul. I don't want to act like Green Bay gave up nothing. This isn't Mavericks-Lakers, Luka Doncic, where the Lakers gave up an aging Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and 2 bags of tater chips. But this isn't that. It's 2 first-round picks. Those are valuable, but they're late first-rounders because the Packers are going to be good. And the Cowboys are terrible at drafting. So, like, they're not going to make this work. This is definitely not going to be the Herschel Walker trade. Got some comments by my man Patrick Brown, who's a big Cowboys fan. As a lifelong fan, I've made peace. 2023 was the straw which broke me. That playoff loss still burns, as Pusha T and No Malice says, so be it. Micah is a good player. Oh, he's a great player. Micah's a good player. The stats be put up, and it was little to be desired. As I remind Cowboys fans, go back and watch the game plus the first quarter season of 2024. Micah stats from the 2023 home playoff loss. Let's not forget he played in the NBA Celebrity All-Star Game and won MVP. He was healthy. Well, yeah, I don't think anyone who was suggesting Micah was hurt. Listen, and that has been my knock on Micah is, okay, against the elite tackles, the Packers don't necessarily have that. Is he able to get to the quarterback? That's fair. I've maintained, because people have kind of mostly blamed Dak, and Dak did not play well in that game against Green Bay. Really, no Cowboy did. But I've always said Dak could have played like prime Mahomes, and the Cowboys probably still would have lost. So, and some of that falls on Micah. Like, you can't excuse it. But outside of that, the guy has been money for the Cowboys defense. And frankly, without him now, this is why I call them a poor man's Cincinnati Bengals. That might be the worst defense in professional football. You can make that case for Cincinnati, but at least Cincinnati's got Trey Hendrickson. At least they've got a legit pass rusher. Who's Dallas got? I mean, who's the Cowboys' best defensive player today? Is it Trayvon Diggs, who was bad last year and comes into this season hurt? Dak's going to put up big numbers, and that'll get Dallas to 9 wins, and that's it. Patrick, I'm glad the saga is over, and we'll continue to watch without my emotions being involved. It keeps my sanity at bay. I prepared a year in advance because the lights flashed in 2023. Again, I invite Patrick, and I did a segment on this, literally. I did an intervention for Cowboys fans. It's on the YouTube channel now a couple of weeks back. To you, Patrick, to every Cowboy fan out there. As a guy who left, by the way, as a guy who knows people, and I'm not, this isn't, betraying anyone's confidence. My buddy Ryan Flowers, who is worked for the Cowboys, okay? He's a Texans guy now. It still kind of pulls for the Cowboys, but he's a Texans guy. Barry Grant Jr., who just goes back and forth at Jets, Cowboys, whatever. Back to the Jets. That's bad. You go from Cowboys to Jets, it's like, die in the electric chair by firing squad. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's bad all the way around. But unless you're my buddies, the Cowboys Cam fam, and shout out to them. Listen, it's brutal stuff they're going through right now as Cowboys fans. Unless you're pretty much trapped as a Cowboys show, join anybody. Man, come over to Pittsburgh. It's going to be a rough 2025 as a Steelers fan. It's going to be a rough 2025. But in general, winning culture, right? Be a Ravens fan. I don't like the Ravens, but I got respect for them. Be a Ravens fan. Rams. Be a little bandwagon to go to Chiefs or Eagles, but feel free. I'd defend you. I'd defend you. I would. After the crap you've gone through as a Cowboys fan, be a Washington fan. Stay in division. Do what you got to do. Be a Texans fan like my buddy Ryan. Stay in state if you're a native Texan. So it's remarkable how much they buggle this. It really is. But again, I do have to take us to break as Cheesehead Ozzy once more. It's great to bring this back. And shout out to my sister, who's a diehard Packers fan. It's funny. Quick story, and then we'll go to break, and then we'll do Vol View and a lot of college football stuff. I was literally in my second class at school yesterday. And, my phone in my pocket, I get a lot, I have a lot of, alerts, from Twitter and from reporters, just to make sure I'm staying on top of the news and sports, and obviously text and stuff. So my phone goes off a few times a class. It's on silent. Don't worry, it's on silent. But I can feel it in my pocket over and over. About midway through class yesterday, my phone is going insane. Just going nuts. I'm like, okay, after a while, I'm like, something happened with Mike. He either got paid or got traded. Get out of the class. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I, call my sister, and she's, beside herself. She's thrilled. Now the Packers have one of the 5 best defensive players at his position on the planet, and they go from, in my mind, already a contender to like no question about it. You don't even think twice contender. Like along with Philadelphia, I think they're the favorites to win the NFC. I really do. So we'll come back in just a minute on Carving Up Live. But when we come back, the Vol View returns, season 3, baby. There's a lot of folks, and I'm not comfortable with this, and I don't appreciate it, to be frank, that are down on Tennessee football going into 2025. I'm here to tell you, better than you think. Come back and explain why, and do another segment of the Vol View in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Cheesehead Ozzy, Sharon, take us to the break. Sharon! Welcome back to Carving It Up Live. So this was a segment that we introduced before the 2023 college football season. Something I had thought about. I talked to my buddy, shouts again to Barry Grant Jr. about this, about somehow incorporating my love for Tennessee football and for all Tennessee sports into a segment, into segment form. So we got to talk about how we wanted to do it. And as far as the name of the segment, I went back and forth. At one point in my head, I came up with the Volunteer Viewpoint. That was going to be the name of the segment. And I suggest the idea to my mom, who's basically a de facto executive producer on the show. And she said, yeah, no, that doesn't flow well at all. The Vol View works better. I was like, I don't know. Like I wasn't in love with it at first. And then after a while, I was like, okay, yeah, it sticks. Yeah, moms are usually right about things such as that, or things in general. So shout out to Mom. That this is kind of her segment in many ways, because she came up with the name and convinced me that Volunteer Viewpoint was rubbish and was not good. So college football, it's technically back. I mean, we had some games last night, Nebraska and Cincinnati, Dylan Raiola playing in front of his idol, Mahomes, and Boise State got mopped by USF last night. Yikes. That was a team folks thought could be like the last team, the group of 5 team in the college football playoff. And I'll give my playoff predictions, by the way, a little bit later. There's been some fun stuff. Colorado opens their season tonight against Georgia Tech. That'll be fun. Baylor, Auburn. There's some nice sort of like appetizer games to get us into the season. But one of the games tomorrow happens to unfortunately be at the same time as Texas, Ohio State. I'll have to do a split screen tomorrow at noon. Tennessee, Syracuse. My Vols open up their season against the Syracuse Orange and begin a new 2025 campaign after a little bit of a tumultuous offseason. So the Vol View starts right now.
In Tennessee.
If you're a Vols fan, the voice of the late, great John Ward never fails to give you goosebumps. It is indeed football time in Tennessee, although the season technically kicks off for my Vols in Atlanta tomorrow at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium against the Syracuse Orange. So, listen, as far as this game, Tennessee is a 13.5-point favorite to beat Syracuse, who obviously had an excellent season last year. Kyle McCord was their quarterback, now in the practice squad in Philadelphia. They decimated or destroyed Miami season with number 1 pick Cam Ward by beating them the last game, which basically cleared the way for Clemson to be able to win the ACC title, get into the college football playoff, the whole bit. So crazy stuff. So Syracuse is coming off of an excellent 2024 campaign. For the Vols, and then we'll get into the schedule. It's safe to say a topsy-turvy offseason. So you go to the playoff in 2024, you go 10-2, which was my exact prediction to a T. I literally said 10-2 in the college football playoff, and that's exactly what my Vols were able to accomplish a season ago. Go to Ohio State, and the season came apart in Columbus. The Buckeyes went on to win the national championship. So can't feel too bad. Ohio State was the best team in the sport last year, particularly in the playoff. So you go into the offseason, you're thinking, okay, we know Texas is going to be a factor. Georgia's certainly going to be a factor. They always are. And Bama's kind of looking to bounce back from a disappointing year. And the same can be said about Oklahoma and LSU. And, okay, so how's Tennessee going to stack up with teams like that in the Southeastern Conference? Well, continuity at the quarterback position, you would imagine, would help Tennessee. Bringing back Nico Iamaleava. Not a great 2024 season, mostly reliant on the run game. Dylan Sampson, that offensive line, the whole bit. But got the kid coming back, highly touted college or high school recruit. I talked extensively about Nico on this show, going back to his first start in the Cheez-It Bowl against Iowa. All the hype and anticipation were there. And then he left. Then he transferred to UCLA, and we'll see what he does with the Bruins this season. UCLA is not a very good football team. Pulling for Nico. I think I talked about it extensively in the show. It's on the YouTube channel on Carving Up the Context back in April when that went down. I think Nico was the victim of terrible advice from his family. I know a guy who has sources in Nico's family. That was an issue over the course of the last couple of years. So Nico's no longer the quarterback, so the Tennessee Vols essentially swap quarterbacks with UCLA. Joey Aguilar comes in the building now. He's now the starting quarterback for my Vols. Again, what you got to know about this kid, little bit turnover prone, and certainly doesn't bring the upside of the table that Nico does. But if I know anything about transfer quarterbacks under Josh Heupel, they tend to work. Joe Milton was fine. Cowboys fans don't feel that way. But Hendon Hooker. Remember, there was not a lot of buzz when Hendon Hooker would transfer from Virginia Tech to Tennessee. And if not for a ACL tear against South Carolina, he goes to New York as a Heisman finalist. Back in 2022, a season in which Tennessee was at one point the number 1 team in the country. Not saying Aguilar is going to do that. I don't think this 2025 team is as talented as 2022, although the receiving core is comparable. It is comparable. So let's look at Tennessee's schedule. Let's go and do we have it up here? Let's go and put this up here. So this is Tennessee's 2025 slate. So they open with Syracuse in Atlanta. Again, Tennessee's a 13.5-point favorite. Syracuse lost multiple starters, including their starting quarterback, Kyle McCord. So I'll actually just go and put the final score for this game in the graphic we have. I think Tennessee's going to take care of business. The offense will be clicking 38-17 against the Orange. They do cover the 13.5-point spread. That's the only exact score prediction just because the game is being played tomorrow. So Tennessee is able to take care of Syracuse. Week 2, they play my alma mater, my beloved ETSU Buccaneers. We may have to have some fun with that on the Volview next week. That's no question an easy win. Tennessee will win convincingly. Week 3, though. An early season matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs. Tennessee has not beaten Georgia since 2016 and the famous Dobnail boot, at least as we call it in the great state of Tennessee, the Josh Dobbs to Juwan Jennings Hail Mary. Ever since then, Georgia has won every single matchup against the Vols. I believe this year will be no differently, unfortunately. And listen, Tennessee's able to beat Georgia, then this team's much better than I anticipated it would be because, spoiler alert, I do believe Georgia is a college football playoff team because it's Kirby Smart. It's a 12-team playoff. They're going to get in. UAB's an easy win. You take care of business at home against them. Then you go to Mississippi State, a team whose opening schedule is not a murderer's row. Generally speaking, now they do play at Arizona State, so that's tough. But you go to Southern Miss, Alcorn State, Northern Illinois. Listen, Mississippi State could easily go in this game 3-1, kind of feeling good about themselves. That's a tough place to go play in Starkville, the Cowbells, the whole bit. But Tennessee's a significantly better football team than Mississippi State, who's on a complete rebuild right now, and they get the W. And so they go into the bye 4-1. Come home week 7 and play an Arkansas team that was one of the 3 teams last year that did beat Tennessee. It was Arkansas, Georgia, and Ohio State. It's kind of like the famous meme you ever seen with the Dragons where they're all kind of looking at each other, and then there's the one that doesn't look like he belongs in the group. That's how it looks for Tennessee's schedule last year. If not for the loss to Arkansas, I think they're in the SEC championship game. This game is at Neyland Stadium. Revenge is on the Vols' minds. They get the job done and beat the Razorbacks. That now puts the Vols at 5-1 going into the third Saturday in October at the Alabama Crimson Tide. As much as it would give me just pure joy to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, which would at that point mean Tennessee would have beaten Alabama 3 out of 4 times in the last 4 games after a 15-game losing streak prior to that, would love it. Wouldn't smoke a cigar. I'm not going to smoke a cigar, but would be very excited about that. But if you know anything about me when I talk college football, you know that I am a Kalen DeBoer fan through and through. I was devastated after Nick Saban retired, and I was just jubilant. I was like, who's the replacement? Oh, shoot, it's Kalen DeBoer, one of the best coaches in college football. Crap. Down season for Alabama a season ago, especially the losses to Michigan, to Oklahoma. Great programs who had a down season in 2024. Vanderbilt was a brutal loss. Vanderbilt and Oklahoma would not have been bowl eligible were it not for the Alabama Crimson Tide. So revenge on their minds, improved play at the quarterback position. Ryan Williams is a stud at wide receiver. I would love to be wrong on this game. I do believe that Alabama will get the win at home. If the game was in Knoxville, I might have a different opinion on it, but Tennessee loses to Alabama. They then go to Kentucky to take on the Wildcats, a team that Tennessee has owned over the course of their entire football history. Tennessee wins in Lexington. Home game, and I believe this will be their second toughest home game of the season against Oklahoma. Listen, I'll be honest. When it comes to the Sooners, I have questions about the coaching staff and Brent Venables and the whole bit. I'll tell you who I do like. From this Oklahoma squad, because I think they can be a real contender to make some noise in the SEC in 2025. I think the kid they have, if I could forgetting his name, shoot. Gosh darn it. The quarterback, is it, oh my gosh, the Oklahoma quarterback. I'm blanking on him. I'm blanking on Oklahoma's quarterback. That transfer from Washington State. Who is it? John Mateer. Transferring from Washington State. Had a big year. By the way, who was the last quarterback to transfer from Washington State? Cam Ward. Number 1 overall pick in the draft. Not saying that's going to be the case with Mateer. Tough game for Tennessee, but if I know anything about this game will be played November 1st, in all likelihood, under the lights in Knoxville at Neyland. So that means day after Halloween, Tennessee's probably going with the black and orange uniforms. They ain't losing in those. They're undefeated in those in the Josh Heupel era. Tennessee gets the W against Oklahoma in what will be their toughest win of the season. Week 11, you go to bye. Week 12, you come out with the W against New Mexico State. That puts Tennessee at 8-2. A team that FanDuel has finishing 10th or 11th in the SEC. I think it was 11th in the SEC in terms of odds to win the SEC. Now they go to Gainesville to take on the Gators. You thought nothing would make me happier than if we could go to Alabama and take out the Crimson Tide. Really would mess up Alabama's entire season and, eliminate them potentially from playoff contention in Tuscaloosa. There is nothing, my friends, nothing that would make me happier than if my beloved Tennessee Volunteers go to Gainesville in the swamp, take on the Gators against DJ Lagway, who's one of the top quarterbacks in college football, and beats Florida. Here's the problem. Here's the issue for my beloved Vols. Tennessee has not beaten Florida in Gainesville. I'm not kidding when I say this. Since I was 3 months old. September 20th, 2003 is the last time that occurred. As much as it just eats at me to say this, and as much as my man Tim Barnard and my other buddy Mike Guido will be delighted, big Florida fans, to hear this. I'm sure they're probably doing the Gator chomp as they watch this now. Florida owns Tennessee when the game is played in Gainesville, so the Vols will lose to the Gators. But, then in week 14, Vanderbilt. A Vanderbilt squad led by a young kid with a lot of confidence and a lot of talent. And Diego Pavia, quarterback of the Vanderbilt Commodores, led Vandy to an upset win over Bama last year. Biggest win in the history of the program. And he said during the offseason, Vanderbilt is going to run the state of Tennessee going forward. I would just about bet you that whoever is running the scoreboard, the Jumbotron at Neyland Stadium, is going to play that clip of Mr. Pavia on that podcast, and Neyland will get kind of loud. So give me the Vols by 50 against Vanderbilt. Absolutely taking it to the Commodores. Tennessee then will finish with a 9-3 record, which, again, far exceeds what a lot of folks expect from them. So, again, not good enough to make the college football playoff. A loss, obviously, or 3 losses, rather, being to Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, which happen to be Tennessee's 3 biggest rivals, which is, I mean, if you want to include Kentucky and Vanderbilt, that's not a rivalry. It's one-sided. That's not a rivalry. Although you could say Georgia, Tennessee's kind of one-sided too. But whatever the case may be, those are the 3 losses that Tennessee faces. I think they were going to play 4 teams that are better than them. Georgia, Bama, Florida, and Oklahoma. I think they beat Oklahoma in large part just by virtue of being at home, in large part because I don't necessarily trust the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball at Oklahoma. And the Vols will surprise a lot of people. Josh Heupel will kind of reestablish himself as, yeah, I'm one of the top coaches in college football. Go 9-3. Joey Aguilar has a fine season. Maybe statistically exceeds what Nico Iamaleava did a season ago. And it's not all bad for the Vols. Good recruiting class coming in. Tennessee's always active in the transfer portal. My Vols will go 9-3. So that is it for this week's edition of the Vol View.
Football time in Tennessee.
100%. It is so good to be back hearing that segment and hearing the hype video and doing the segment and talking Tennessee football. See, my dad is in the comments on Instagram. He says, really? Do you bleed orange? We hate the Gators around here. You think I despise Florida? I hate Florida. I'm in the minority of Tennessee fans that hates Florida more than I hate Alabama. Because with Alabama, there's like a healthy respect there, particularly when Saban was there. And I love Kalen DeBoer as well. But Saban led the greatest dynasty in the history of the sport. And there's almost an element of, like, yeah, I hate them because they're our rivals. But gosh darn, sustain success for that amount of time. I mean, even Saban's last year, they won the SEC championship. They gave Michigan all they could handle in that Rose Bowl in 2023. And then Saban, kind of rides off the sunset and now is on College Game Day doing a great job. Fighting against players getting NIL money, which I don't appreciate, but Saban's obviously the greatest coach of all time. So there's a healthy respect there. With Florida, ugh. I mean, first of all, their stadium is literally called the Swamp. You like swamps? Unless you're, unless you're from, I guess the bayou, so to speak, which is weird that LSU isn't the Swamp, in my opinion, but whatever the case may be. They're Death Valley, Clemson's Death Valley. That's a big game this weekend. Obviously, the second biggest game of the college football opening weekend. So very, very exciting. I will say also, before I get into my college football playoff predictions, as I was watching that kind of montage of Tennessee, and you see Lee Corso there briefly. He's next to Peyton Manning and next to, obviously, Kirk Herbstreit. Shout out. I'd be remiss if I didn't say big shout out to legend. 89 years of age, Lee Corso. His final College Game Day tomorrow at the Horseshoe, Texas, Ohio State. I think it feels inevitable. He has to pick Ohio State. He has to put on Brutus's mascot head. He has to. This is the first, because that was the first time Lee Corso ever did a headgear pick. He put on the Brutus head, picking the Ohio State Buckeyes. Like, he has to go with Ohio State. So shout out to Lee Corso, the final show of his incredible career on College Game Day. It's not going to feel the same without him. Still the best college football pregame show on national television, but it will not feel the same without Coach. So definitely a salute to Lee Corso on an incredible career. And I think all college football fans everywhere will be cutting onions when he makes that final pick. It will be an emotional moment, and I'm sure it will be on that set as well. So this is the second year of the 12-team playoff in college football. And the seeding has been revised from where it was a year ago, where it was last season. It was, okay, the top 4 seeds are the 4 highest ranked conference champions, right? And then you have obviously the 6 teams after that, or sorry, 7 teams after that, kind of your wild card, so to speak, teams. And then you have the final team in the group of 5 as the 12 seed. They changed the format to where it's just straight seeding. It's top 11 teams and then the group of 5 team. And so, go and reveal it. This is what I think the college football playoff will look like. So from 1 to 12, Penn State Nittany Lions. I think, listen, this is if this was ever a prove-it year for James Franklin, right? Like, can he win the big game? He's 5-20 against top 10 teams of the course of his excellent career coaching at Penn State, and then before that, obviously, at Vanderbilt. Penn State is the second most talented team in college football to Texas. I do think, though, they have an easier schedule than Texas. I do think they go to the Horseshoe in Columbus, Ohio, beat the Buckeyes. They are undefeated. They do win the Big 10, and the Penn State Nittany Lions are number 1. Texas with Arch Manning, I think they're actually, I shouldn't spoil that. Clearly the best team in the SEC. Arch Manning has all the upside, especially people talk about all the Manning name, and there's almost like in football circles, like a regal nature. Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, obviously their father, patriarch Archie Manning, and now it's Arch Manning, who's Cooper's son, and is he going to continue the family legacy? I think he is. I think his ability to throw from the pocket, the arm strength, the accuracy, and the mobility, which is something that neither of his uncles had, Eli or Peyton. So that's something he's going to bring to the table to bring a whole new dynamic to this Texas offense that they certainly did not have with Quinn Ewers. I think Sark is one of the 5 best coaches in college football, bar none. Texas, with a stacked defense, good running game, the whole bit, is going to be at number 2. Listen, I have been as critical as anybody in the media of Dabo Swinney and Clemson. I think the fact that he does not use the transfer portal is absurd. I think it's kind of the detriment of his program. However, the fact that some of his key cogs, his key players at Clemson, haven't transferred, have built continuity at Clemson. The fact that Cade Klubnik, who I think is certainly the most proven quarterback in college football going into his final season at Clemson, he'll be one of the top picks in the 2026 class. I think Clemson is top to bottom loaded. They're always going to have a great defense. That goes without saying. Dabo is a great coach. I've just kind of criticized his recruiting philosophy and how he uses the portal and NIL and the whole bit. Cade Klubnik's one of the top quarterbacks in college football. I think they're going to make a lot of noise this year. I don't think they're necessarily the 3rd best team, but the ACC is pretty weak. And you can see on this 12, I don't have Miami. I do not buy Miami at all. I don't know if Carson Beck's healthy. I think a lot of what happened with the Hurricanes last year, they were elevated by Cam Ward and his greatness to be the number 1 pick in this past draft. So I'm not a believer in the Hurricanes whatsoever. Clemson will be the 3rd team in. Listen, there's an element of, once bitten, twice shy with the Oregon Ducks because I picked them. I was feeling so good about Oregon last year. They were my number 1 team coming into the season, right? Dan Lanning, who's one of the top coaches in college football, and the experience of Dylan Gabriel, and the roster was loaded. And I said they're going to be number 1. They're going to win the Big Ten and win the Natty. And they were undefeated, number 1, won the Big Ten, and then got clocked by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. That game was over before it started. So listen, I still think Oregon's really talented. Lanning's a great coach. There's a bit of for the guys returning to that team, a little bit of a revenge factor. I think the fact that Dante Moore is their starting quarterback. He was the top recruit in his class. So they do have more upside at that position than they had with Dylan Gabriel. Again, they lost 18 starters from a year ago. I get that. They're losing a lot of experience, but the schedule is not bad. So I think Oregon will be the number 4 team in the country. Notre Dame at number 5, the national champion runner-ups. Marcus Freeman is an outstanding coach. They obviously just played in the Natty. 3 of their first 5 games. This is what's a big thing for Notre Dame. 3 of their first 5 games are against ranked teams, or currently ranked teams. One of them is against Boise State, and I don't think the Broncos will be really ranked by that point. After that, from October 4th on, they do not play another currently ranked team the rest of the season. So they've got CJ Carr as their new quarterback. He's actually the grandson of the great Lloyd Carr, who coached Michigan to the 97 title. Jeremiah Love is a monster at the running back position. Had a big game last year against Indiana and played well throughout the playoff. So I think Notre Dame's going to be 5. Ohio State's going to be 6. Again, you can't lose as many key cogs of that Ohio State Buckeyes team as they did a year ago and not drop slightly. Although, ironically, they were the number 8 team coming into the playoff. This case would actually be an upgrade. They, of course, went on to beat Tennessee and Oregon and then Texas and then Notre Dame to win the Natty. But a new quarterback coming in Julian Sayin. So, again, a kid, what's he going to bring to the table? We don't really have a lot of film on him. So, by the way, throwing into the fire against the number 1 team in the country, Texas, like there's about as much pressure on him from a production standpoint as there is on Arch Manning. So that's going to be fun to watch. But listen, Jeremiah Smith is as physically gifted as any wide receiver that has ever come out of an NFL draft, which he will in 2027. He's still got another year after this year of playing college football. The kid's awesome. He had a very quiet semifinal game against Texas last year. I do not anticipate that that's going to continue tomorrow at the Horseshoe, especially, obviously at home. So listen, Ryan Day got the monkey off his back. I was very critical of him after that loss to Michigan. Monkey's off his back. He's a national champion. Ohio State's always going to be talented. They'll be at number 6. The Georgia Bulldogs at number 7. They're the next SEC team into the playoff after Texas. Listen, the weakness of that squad, the weakness of their roster, was wide receiver. So what did they do? Well, they went to the transfer portal. Zachariah Branch from USC. Noah Thomas from A&M. The only thing that holds me back from Georgia into getting into that upper echelon of college football playoff contenders is the quarterback. It's a new offseason, so we'll see what he looks like. Joe Burrow went from, I thought, an okay college quarterback in 2018 to, oh my gosh, he's the runaway Heisman in 2019. I don't love what I've seen from Gunnar Stockton in the limited action he got. Now, again, those games were against Texas in the SEC title game when Georgia basically ran their way to victory after Carson Beck went down. And then in the quarterfinal game in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame, he really struggled on that one. Georgia's offense couldn't get anything going. So I do have some concerns about that. But at the end of the day, Kirby Smart has an argument that he's the best coach in college football. I think it's like him and Sark are in that discussion. They've lost one home game. In their last 9 seasons, they have not lost a home game since prior to COVID, since 2019. 9 of their 12 games are at home. That will aid the Bulldogs. They will get to the playoff once again. LSU's at 8. Again, this is the one I probably feel least confident about. This is a prove-it year for Brian Kelly. Wait a second. You left Notre Dame because you didn't think you could get the recruits and the talent that you could at LSU. Well, Marcus Freeman just took Notre Dame to a national championship, and obviously the Fighting Irish have a ton of momentum going into 2025. You got to an SEC title game in 2022, and then you've kind of taken 2 steps back the last couple of seasons after that. You've got experience at the quarterback position in Garrett Nussmeier, who has dealt with injuries, but I think he'll be fine when it's all said and done. Their schedule is pretty brutal. They got home games against Florida, South Carolina, A&M. They got road games against Clemson, which they play tomorrow, Ole Miss, Bama, Oklahoma. So, and I'm not a big believer in the Oklahoma Sooners this year, but that's still a tough road game. I think LSU top to bottom, they were very active in the portal. I think that's going to help them tremendously. We know Death Valley is one of the biggest home field advantages in college football. So I'm going to tentatively put LSU at that number 8 spot. Again, do I feel great about it? Not really. But I think LSU, in the playoff as that number 8 spot. Do I feel great about it? Not necessarily, but that's where I've got the Tigers in. Arizona State goes back to the playoff as the 9 seed with Kenny Dillingham. Kenny Dillingham and what he did a season ago was utterly incredible to win the Big 12 after it felt like BYU was going to win it for a while and Colorado had momentum and Kansas State and Iowa State, and out of nowhere, bam! Arizona State shocks the entire conference, wins the Big 12, and boy, did they give with a significant talent disadvantage. Did they not give Texas a run for their money in that Peach Bowl game in the quarterfinal? Took them to overtime, could have easily, were a play away from beating the Longhorns, came up short when it was all said and done. Again, I like the play at the quarterback position. Dillingham's a great coach. Arizona State is the lone Big 12 team that makes the playoff. This looks kind of weird to see all these teams that we look at as the blue bloods of college football and like, oh, wait a second, is that Illinois? Illinois is in the playoff? Yes, Illinois is in the playoff. Let me explain why. Do I think that they are necessarily one of the 12 best teams in college football? Not really. By the way, they open their season tonight against Western Illinois. But look at their schedule, okay? The 2 ranked games they play this year. At Indiana, don't buy the Hoosiers at all. And then a home game for Ohio State, which they will almost certainly lose. Unranked games the rest of the way from there. Listen, I think the coaching staff in Illinois is good. They've got solid play at the quarterback position. The Big Ten is brutal. Big Ten's the best conference in college football until proven otherwise. The SEC has got to get a notable win at some point. They have an opportunity, obviously, to do that tomorrow a couple of times. But I think Illinois gets the job done. They're kind of that team. We looked at Indiana last year like they're not one of the 12 best teams. I think that's how a lot of people will justifiably feel about Illinois. But the Fighting Illini will get into the playoff as the 10 seed. A team that I'm bullish on. Listen, the only reason I have them at 11 and not higher is because their schedule is just hell. South Carolina. I am about as big of a Lenora Sellers fan as anybody out there. I think by season's end, we could have a 3-man race. Arch Manning, Cade Klubnik, Lenora Sellers as to who the best quarterback in college football is. To be honest, Lenora Sellers is my Heisman pick. I'm picking him to win the Heisman Trophy in college football this season. The biggest downside is if you look at from October 11th on for South Carolina, at LSU, home for Oklahoma, home for Bama, at Ole Miss, at A&M, then a Coastal Carolina game, and then a home game against Clemson. That second half of the schedule is absolutely positively brutal. They lost some players on the defensive end, but they still do have Dylan Stewart, who comes off the edge, is one of the top players in college football. And I think Lenora Sellers is a superstar and will win the Heisman Trophy. I think he's the best quarterback in the Southeastern Conference with respect to guys like Garrett Nussmeier and Arch Manning and hopefully Joey Aguilar by season's end, DJ Lagway. I think Sellers is fantastic. And their resume, because they play so many ranked teams, and they'll win a number of them, their resume will be just enough to eke them in. I think the tiebreaker will be South Carolina, Alabama. They will beat Alabama, and they will go to the college football playoff as the 11 seed. And then Memphis is the group of 5 team at 12. Again, Memphis did finish last year 11-2, ranked in the top 25, especially now with Boise State. It feels like Boise State's kind of done now after that loss to USF. So I think the Memphis Tigers are going to sneak in as the 12 seed. So who is going to win the national championship, you ask? Well, I'm going to roll with Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns. Again, feels a little bit chalky. Oh, Bryson, you're going with the number 1 team. Top to bottom, it's the most talented team in college football. So the thing that puts them over the top in my mind over Penn State. I trust Arch Manning more than I trust the quarterback play at Penn State. I certainly trust Sark more than I trust James Franklin. Again, Drew Aller's a nice quarterback. I don't think he brings the upside that Manning brings. Defensively, Penn State has the advantage, but Texas, it's close. And weapons, I think Texas has a clear advantage, and certainly running the football, it's close as well. But I think I'm going to give the advantage to the Longhorns in that regard. Texas goes on to win the national championship. McConaughey celebrates in the field with the guys. Arch Manning is the first pick in 2026. Listen, I know his grandfather, the great Archie Manning, was talking about, he's going to come back for another year at Texas. Let me tell you something. If Arch Manning goes to Columbus tomorrow and wins, he's going to be the number 1 pick in the 2026 draft. He's coming out. There's no question about it. So before we get out of here, we've got some monstrous college football games over the course of week 1. I've said it for the last 2 weeks. I'll say it again as we're on the dawn of a brand new CFB season. God bless the schedule makers, honestly. And God bless the college football playoff for extending to 12 teams, which after a while they had to due to NIL, conference realignment, the transfer portal. You had to extend it to 12 teams. And because of that, we get games like we get tomorrow in Columbus. We get games featuring the 2 Tigers teams, right? LSU and Clemson. We get Miami and Notre Dame, who I think play every year, generally speaking. They've got a rivalry that goes back. But we still get a big game on Sunday night. So let's predict those games, shall we? I think they're going to take care of Syracuse, beat the Orange tomorrow and cover the 13.5-point spread. Also, another game between 2 college football blue bloods. I think Alabama is going to take care of business against Florida State, 34-14, and they do take care of the spread as well. So Florida State's not very good. Bama is going to be just on the outside looking in for the college football playoff. The big games we all care about. Let's go in reverse in terms of the interest. Notre Dame, Miami. So I just talked about the Irish. I think they're going to be the 5 seed in the college football playoff. Their schedule from mid-October on is a cakewalk. So I think this is a game that that Marcus Freeman, that group looks at like, okay, if we can just go to Miami, knock off the Hurricanes, a Hurricanes team that, by the way, I don't think is nearly as good as some folks are advertising. It's all, the road's clear for us. We can have one slip up, but we'll make the college football playoff going away at 11-1. Which I think they'll do. CJ Carr will get the job done. A little bit of a low-scoring game. Notre Dame does barely cover -2.5. 23-19 is your final score. The Irish beat the Hurricanes. The big Saturday night game in Death Valley. Not Death Valley in Louisiana, Death Valley in South Carolina. LSU Tigers, Clemson Tigers. Two teams I believe will represent their conferences in the college football playoff. First of all, the quarterback plays excellent. Garrett Nussmeier for LSU, Cade Klubnik for Clemson. So that you bring that to the table. Both defenses are excellent. I'll give the advantage to Clemson in that regard. And then you got Brian Kelly versus Dabo Swinney. So the coaching matchup is excellent as well. The atmosphere is going to be off the charts at Clemson. There's no question about it. I think all three of these games are close. I think it's tight, goes down to the wire. You get a little bit of like a mini shootout in the fourth quarter. I could see this game being like 13-10 going in the fourth quarter, and then both offenses just click in the fourth. But I'm going to go with Clemson to get the job done. LSU in the points. 4.5 is a little bit too much for a team as talented as LSU. So I'll give me LSU plus 4.5, but Clemson to win outright 27-23. That is Clemson's, to me, their second toughest game of the year. I've only got LSU above South Carolina because South Carolina's schedule is brutal. But yes, Clemson gets the job done 27-23, and they beat the LSU Tigers. And then the game we're all looking forward to. Probably the biggest game of the college football season. This is like you come down the steps on Christmas morning and you open the biggest gift. You're like, we're not messing with the other ones. The big gift, the big bow and all that. Rip it open. What's in there? That's what this is. Number 1 team in America, the Texas Longhorns, my national championship pick. The number 3 team in America, the defending national champion, Ohio State Buckeyes. The line has kind of moved a little bit over the last few days. So that is noteworthy. Right now, it's actually Ohio State -1.5. I decided to take it when it was Texas, in the points. Here's what I look. Or sorry, no, it was actually my bad. It was Ohio State -1.5 coming in. That's my apologies. I think because of the loud factor at Ohio State, that's one of the toughest places to go win a game in college football. Ask just about anybody that's gone to the horseshoe. It's brutal. Fan base is incredible. I think this is one of those, when we have moments with a young, upstart, prodigy athlete, doesn't it feel like more times than not they deliver? Certainly in college sports. I remember the hype around Zion Williamson going at Duke. It's like, man, this kid's high school highlights. Have you seen? And then Zion Williamson hasn't been what we thought he'd be in the NBA, obviously, but at Duke, he was unstoppable. You go back in time, Shaquille O'Neal, guys like that, like dudes that were just dominant. They're using basketball as an example. Jeremiah Smith came in, bam. Trevor Lawrence came in, bam. I think that's what we're going to see from Arch Manning. I think this is an opportunity for him to kind of establish, I'm this third, I'm the heir to the Manning family throne. Archie Manning set the bar. Peyton Manning and Eli Manning obviously were excellent in their careers. Eli, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Peyton, 2-time champion, 5-time MVP, and one of the 4 greatest quarterbacks ever. Arch is saying, okay, I'm gonna stake my claim to that throne without question. That is my thing to claim. Part of why I favor Texas in this game is we have a little bit to go off of with Arch. He did start some games last year. He actually started an SEC game against Mississippi State a year ago. Julian Sand got nothing. Kid may be really good. I mean, he's obviously as if he's starting for Ohio State. Really talented, upside young kid. We have nothing on Julian Sand. I will say I think Jeremiah Smith is going to have a monster game. Texas is going to do all they can to try and bracket him, take him out of the football game. Jeremiah Smith had 1 catch against Texas in the semifinal game last year. That ain't happening again. If it does, Texas is winning by double digits. I got the Longhorns getting the job done, 30-28, Texas plus 1.5, and an outright win. They knock off Ohio State, the defending champions, at the Horseshoe. By the way, that would be 2 straight losses, ironically, for Ohio State at home if you go back to the disastrous Michigan loss last year. So this will be a win for Texas, 30-28. They knock off the Ohio State Buckeyes and certainly retain that spot as the number 1 team in the country. I don't think Texas is necessarily going to go undefeated. I think they'll lose 1 game on the way, which is why I have them at number 2 to Penn State's number 1. I do think Penn State will go undefeated going into the playoff. I think Texas will start their season with a win and go on to win the national championship. With that is all the time I have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving It Up on Labor Day to talk all college football on Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, X, Facebook, and Instagram. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. Of course, all of my social media platforms are down there. You got over here, you got Instagram, you got X right there, TikTok. It's my NFC South video is doing well on TikTok, so that's good. And then the two YouTube channels where my show streams, the Carving It Up YouTube channel, and then right over here, right down there, the Grid Network YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe to and follow all of the, I would say all the above, but they're below. All the below. The links are down in the description of the YouTube channel. So we greatly appreciate your support as always. Have a great weekend. College football is back. Couldn't be happier. So listen, here's to a great Saturday. I'll see y'all on Monday on Labor Day to react to all things. Have a great extended weekend. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And happy birthday, Batu. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.